to Art Salt Lake, where we cover authentic, relevant, and community stories.
Oh, with spring just around the corner tomorrow, we want to talk to Dr. Mark Burton about focusing on happy things in your life. I mean, out of the maybe the winter blues, you want to kind of spring into a good thing.
So we're going to focus on the positive. We're going to do things that will help our mood too.
Well, there's actually a branch of psychology called positive psychology
Okay.
that's probably about 20 years old, but it really approaches people who come in to deal with issues in a different way than, say, we used to do. You know, I've talked on several episodes how our brains are really geared toward looking at the negative. It's how we've evolved, and it's how we have survived over, you know, many centuries. And so it takes some effort to shift from the negative to the positive, and that's what this is about. And so the two most common issues that are presented in therapy would be anxiety and depression. Okay. And so as I talk about those today, I'm not talking about the severe depression, which some people have severe depression where they really can't get out of bed, they don't go to work. But the vast majority of people who talk about anxiety and depression, it's more of a low-level depression where they, you know, they get up, they go to work, they work in their families, but they aren't happy, or there's this low level of anxiety, and so that's what we're talking about. And so there are 5 key points that I want to focus on. Focus on positive emotions like joy, contentment, happiness. And what's interesting is often people will come in and, you know, you might ask the question, what makes you happy? Nothing makes me happy. And so they're in that, what I'd call this negative sentiment override, where they can't see the positive. And so you have to, sometimes you have to help them go down to what I call micro happiness or micro joy. So what's the littlest thing that gives you joy? Or when was the last time you smiled?
Or laughed.
Or laughed, and what was it that led you to smile or to laugh? And then you focus on those little things, and you take small steps, because often when you're in that place, it's really hard to see the positive. And the same thing is true of strengths and virtues. So that's the second key concept.
Even if you're not happy, you may have some good
There's
strengths.
nothing good about me.
I
hear that.
No.
You know, what are the things you do well? I don't do anything well.
Lies.
Well, it's just they can't see it. And so what you're doing is, again, you go down to the small things, if you know, or just to help them think about it. And so I don't know that I've ever run into any person who there isn't something that makes them happy, or if there isn't something
they see good about themselves
that they do well.
So can you help them? Can you point things out that they might not realize?
Well, I think you can throw out ideas to them, but often you just have to help them go through a process of thinking about it, because they're stuck in that negativity.
Right.
And so it's hard for them to see the positivity.
And so when you're able to point out these micro moments of joy and small things that they like about themselves, is that how we start retraining the brain to think more positively?
Right. And so and the other thing, one of the key concepts in positive psychology is a daily gratitude practice, which I've mentioned before. And that is really helpful to shift the way we think from the negativity to the positivity.
And you also advise to create meaningful relationships.
So
and when you're at the despair like that, it's hard to create
It's hard to do that. And so, you know, relationships as a species, relationships is really what makes us happy. And so often you might say, well, I feel alone. And sometimes they're alone. And so, you know, it all ties together. They're stuck. They can't find anything that makes them happy. And so it's hard to go out and find relationships. So you have to help them see what are the possibilities out there. You know, maybe they ride their bike, and so they could join a bike club or something like that. Just find common interests. And then the other thing that's another key concept is to find meaning in life, and that's I think out of all of these, that's the hardest one, because often we get like a job. I mean, we're at a job 5 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day, and a lot of people don't find their work meaningful.
Right.
And so that's really hard. And so you need a job to live, but what do you do outside of those hours? What can you find that is meaningful? Often Volunteer work is one of those things that can be meaningful for people.
That meaningful
hobbies.
relationship.
A meaningful
You might need
relationship.
a meaningful relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that is a hard one
Yeah.
that you have to do. But it's so really the concept behind that positive psychology is look for the things in life that bring you joy, that make you happy, that give meaning to your life, and focus on those as opposed to the negative.
Right.
Do more of the things that make you happy. Do more of the things that make you smile.
Okay.
And realizing that you go to work every day to a job maybe you don't like, but people depend on you, and
Right.
you're dependable,
Right.
and you show up.
So there's a virtue or quality,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That you can point out. That they may not like their job, but they are dependable,
Yeah.
and they show up, and they do that for
And
the
make a
family
difference for a lot of
probably,
people, right.
As well. And so often you have to point that out,
Okay.
that's a virtue.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have a question for Dr. Burton, he's going to be back in our next hour. So you can just scan this QR code and ask him a question. Again, we're focusing on practicing positive psychology, but you can ask him anything. You just
That's
get
right.
a little bit of free therapy for you. And we will keep you anonymous if you want to be.
And I
We're
think-
not going to
Yeah.
call you out on TV or anything.
And people might know somebody who's negative
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
and how can I help that person turn
Right.
around? And
Yeah.
he might have the answers.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great.
We have